not as tall as others. So first of all, let me thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join us for this exciting release of the report. I'd like to take a minute to first acknowledge Mayor Michael Nutter, who has been a champion of this work, Project U-Turn Collaborative members who have tirelessly made sure that this work that we do together is not only aligned but impactful. Our funders who provide the resources in order for us to sustain these efforts. The Researchers Policy Lab at CHOP and Johns Hopkins University for making sure that we continue to let the data lead us. The School District of Philadelphia for being a stalwart partner in the Department of Human Services for their partnership as well. As you can see from this impressive list, it takes a community of actors to ensure that our young people not only reconnect to school, but that they thrive and succeed. And we would not be here today without the important partners who help us to do this work. In 2006, Philadelphia's high school graduation rate was among the lowest in the country at 52%. And as a result of that reality, Project U-Turn was launched as a collaborative, a citywide response to bring attention to the problem. But we did not just focus on attention, we also focused on developing solutions. Project U-Turn has maintained a focus on reconnecting the young people to pathways leading to secondary credential and post-secondary education or training, with representation from the school district, the Mayor's Office of Education, the Department of Human Services, Family Court, local foundations, and youth advocacy groups, as well as parents and young people. At Project U-Turn, we often talk about not about us without us, meaning we don't want to make any solution without the young people who are impacted. We want them to be a part of our work every step of the way. That's really a critical component of the work that we do together. Many elements have contributed to Project U-Turn's impact, none of them more significant than the release of Unfulfilled Promise, the dimensions and characteristics of Philadelphia's dropout crisis. The report focused on the dropout crisis in Philadelphia, looking at how many students drop out of high school and what factors put students at risk for dropping out. That seminal research was integral to us not only understanding the characteristics of those students in our city, but also understanding what we could do as a community in order to address them. In 2014, Project U-Turn commissioned a follow-up study to examine whether the prevention and intervention initiatives reduced dropout rates. And today, we are excited to officially reveal the key findings from the study titled, "A Promise Worth Keeping: Advancing the High School Graduation Rate in Philadelphia." I welcome you all here for the important discussion as we go beyond just announcing the results of this research, but acknowledging the very strong realities in our city and highlighting the next steps on our path towards advancing the high school graduation rate in Philadelphia. Today, you're going to learn about the key findings from the report, including overall graduation rates, re-engagement, and post-secondary connections. At this time, I would like to invite Mayor Michael Nutter to the podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Chikema, thank you so much for your work as the CEO of the Philadelphia Youth Network, Stephanie Gambone at PYN as well, and Chikema, of course, is also the co-chair of Project U-Turn. Can we please give Philadelphia Youth Network a big, big round of applause? Thank you very, very much. Dr. Haidt is with us today. He and I were just together down at Southwark Elementary. I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. Our Chief Education Officer for the City of Philadelphia, Dr. Lori Shore. Lori, thank you very, very much as well. Gary Williams is here, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Human Services, but I want to thank Gary and certainly our Commissioner, Vanessa Garrett-Harley, for their spectacular work in this regard. David Rubin, MD, from the Policy Lab, and Cynthia Figueroa, President and CEO of Congresso, and also the Project U-Turn co-chair. Councilman Curtis Jones is here with us today. I want to thank him for his presence. I don't see her, but I'm going to shout her out anyway, and I saw her in a meeting earlier this morning as well. But one of the architects of all of this, and certainly Project U-Turn, Laura Shabilla, who deserves her own recognition. So please, even in her absence, recognize Laura. What we're talking about here today is the most important issue in the city of Philadelphia. We're talking about educating our children. As Shakima mentioned, we are pleased to be able to release a promise worth keeping, addressing the high school graduation rate in Philadelphia in this report today. It not only shows the improvements that Philadelphia has made in our graduation rate, but also outlines the need for continued focus in our efforts to increase those gains. As you know, as Shakima mentioned, this is an update to the 2006 report, Unfulfilled Promise, the dimensions and characteristics of Philadelphia's dropout crisis from 2000 to 2005, which found that over that period, only about half of our students entering high school graduated on time, and that fewer than 60% of those students graduated within 6 years. That, in fact, is an embarrassment and shameful. It also looked at graduation and dropout rates for different groups within the student population, including by race, ethnicity, gender, and youth involvement in the foster care and juvenile justice systems. While the findings were certainly disheartening and, as I mentioned, embarrassing, I also saw them as an opportunity. And when I ran for mayor in 2006, 2007, I made it very clear that improving educational outcomes would be the priority of my administration if the voters gave me the opportunity to represent them. At my first inaugural address on January 7, 2008, I outlined two ambitious but I believe attainable and important goals: that we needed to double the number of Philadelphians with a college degree from 18% in 2007 to about 36% by 2018, and to increase the high school graduation rate to 80% by 2015. I'm proud to say that over the last 7 years plus, we've made progress on both goals. The college attainment rate in Philadelphia is nearly 26%, and the graduation rate as of the 2013-14 school year is 65%. The 6-year graduation rate also increased 10 percentage points to 70% since 2007. According to a promise worth keeping, when you compare first-time freshmen in the 2003-2004 school year to first-time freshmen in the 2008-2009 school year, the number of dropouts decreased by 2,000 students. That means when those first-time freshmen in 2008, 2009 finished high school in 2012 and 13, there were more than 2,000 young people additional graduating. This progress is, in part, due to the great work to address the dropout crisis in the first place and the efforts to improve overall graduation rates by Project U-Turn, the school district, the city of Philadelphia, and our many, many education advocates and partners. We launched the school district's re-engagement center and accelerated high schools and offered additional services and supports to students through the city's Department of Human Services, and the Department of Behavioral Health. And these gains have been achieved despite insufficient public education funding during the time of profound change at the school district. Today, our goal and our continued advocacy must be to provide a high-quality education to every Philadelphia student. It's difficult to do, though, when there is never enough money to invest in innovative and effective models and barely enough to provide a bare bones, in my view, inadequate education. In recent years, the school district has made many tough decisions, and now led by Superintendent Height and the work of the School Reform Commission, they've unfortunately had to cut more than 5,000 jobs at the school district, reducing their administrative costs by more than 50% and closing 32 schools. On the other hand, the City of Philadelphia, we've increased our local contribution by more than $360 million in new annual recurring funding over the last 5 years, That's the largest 5-year increase of local funding contribution in the last 30 years. But it's still not enough. We've been left with one guidance counselor for more than 1,000 students at Bartram High School, a school nurse, in some instances only 2 days a week, class sizes that are much too large, continued cuts to art programs, music programs, sports programs. Our schools, and more importantly, our students and teachers have suffered enough. Earlier this year, Superintendent Height asked me and City Council to provide an additional $105 million in new funding from the City of Philadelphia. This funding would not only fill the school district's more than $80 million budget shortfall, it would make significant investments in Action Plan 3.0, Dr. Height's bold new model for public education in Philadelphia. At my budget address in March, I proposed a property tax increase of 9.34%. It will generate enough money to not only fill the hole of the deficit, but also start us on the road to investing in the education of our young people. And right now, it is the only funding plan on the table that creates a recurring, stable, dependable funding stream for the education of our young people and does not hurt the city's general fund balances or cut into important city services. It's the only plan that doesn't need any state approval. This can be done right here in this building. And it's the only plan that can be implemented for the budget year that begins on July 1st, 2015. For the typical homeowner, my proposed tax increase amounts to about $104 a year. That's less than $1 a day for 93% of Philadelphia's homeowners. It also means that for less than the cost of a large pizza a month, the School District of Philadelphia can hire back guidance counselors and nurses, reading specialists, and assistant principals. The new funding could be used for our sports programs or art and music programs in our schools, activities that we know for a fact help our students to stay engaged with the school community, encourage good attendance and grades. Many of our schools, our principals and teachers were forced to stop offering AP classes because of budget reasons, not because of lack of student interest or their inability to perform at that level. It also has caused many of our teachers to not be able to provide other important services that our students need. Our young people have made impressive strides in spite of, in many instances, declining or minimal funding. Imagine what the children of Philadelphia could do if adults actually did the right thing, properly funded their education, and allowed them to go on to be the great citizens we want them to be. The time for investing in education is right now. Thank you very much. Am I supposed to introduce Dr. Height? Okay. Let me ask Dr. Height, our superintendent, to come to the podium now. Dr. Height?
Thank you, Mayor Nutter. Thank you, and I want to begin by just offering my appreciation for Mayor Nutter and your administration for the work that you've done in support and in collaboration with City Council to provide us with additional revenue at a time when everything else was going in the other direction. And so while we still don't have what we need, we are in a much better place because of you and because of your administration, because of City Council, and I see Councilman Curtis Jones is also here, but thank you on behalf of the students in Philadelphia. We were just at Southwark Elementary, and it was a wonderful visit. And the reason I'm talking about Southwark, because there was a young person that said something there that reminded me of something another young person said when I was interviewing for this position about 3.5 years ago. And Councilman Jones, you remember we're going from group to group. Mayor, you remember it was going from group to group. And one group was a group of students. And some were current students, some were students who were in college, some were students who were no longer in the school district. And so this one young man, and I remember we were talking, and a few of the children, I was asking, what would make for a better experience in the Philadelphia School District. And I said specific to issues around dropout. And the young man looked at me, who was no longer in the district, and he said, "Dr. Hite, do you mean dropout or do you mean push out?" And he was talking about the environments in the schools that were not conducive to children finishing or feeling like they belong there. The other young lady, who was actually a second-year college student, said that what would have been helpful for me is that I had the opportunity to engage and see more guidance counselors in their schools than police officers. And so that speaks to an environment that our children were working through. So it reminds me of the Southwark visit that we just had. And we had a wonderful visit with Southwark, and the mayor was doing a listening tour, and he had stakeholder groups, and one stakeholder group was a group of students. And the group of students, and the mayor was asking specifically, what is it about Southwark that's worth investing in? And why do you like the school so much? And one of the young people said, here it's like a family. We feel safe, wanted, and accepted. And if you think about that and you think about what we're talking about today, that's extremely important, because that has to be the environment, not just at Southwark, but at every school that's serving a child here in Philadelphia. And I think that's why this report speaks to that. So once again, I want to thank the mayor for the opportunity to be out at Southwark, and I want to thank you for all of your support to this work. I want to thank all of the individuals who are here, because they have also been partners in this work. Specifically, Shakima, thank you. I know that's in my notes. Thank you, Shakima. And I also want to thank Cynthia for the work that's being done at Project U-Turn. And from Child Policy Lab, thank you, because your information has really informed our work, and so it's very important. But the two areas of the report that I'm going to focus on are key findings from the re-engagement of disconnected youth and post-secondary connections. And I think the story that I provides some context and backdrop for that. First, graduation rates among all racial groups increase, and so that's something that's extremely important. And this is in spite of the fact that we had less revenue to do and have supports in place that we had at one point. But I think it shows us the power of when we all collaborate and face in the same direction as we try to resolve some issues that are associated with our young people. But although the graduation rates among all racial groups increase, with Hispanic and Asian students demonstrating the greatest gains, their graduation rates increase 18 and 15 percentage points, respectively. Additionally, the percentage of dropouts who re-engage rose steadily from 47% to 54%. So the young man who said, do you mean dropout or do you mean push out, is really important for us to find those young people, get them back into a program of study so that they can pursue their desires, their hopes and dreams, and be a productive citizen. The graduation rate for dropouts who re-engage remained steady at roughly 35% across the 7 groups observed. I think these are extraordinary results. However, I think it's really important, and I've shared this a couple of times and I've heard it shared by others. Steady in this case is not good enough. More must be done to help those young people re-engage and earn a high school diploma, because it becomes a pathway to their future and to their future opportunities. While enrollment rates in 2- or 4-year post-secondary institutions remain relatively constant, post-secondary enrollment for foster care involved youth increased the most, from 17% to 24%. Once again, extraordinary increases there. So in closing, this is my closing part, not the program's closing part, so don't get excited. Increasing students' exposure to post-secondary education and training opportunities by expanding supports offered during the transition from high school to post-secondary education is essential for all of our students continuing on a path of success. And I'll just add to that statement that exposure to post-secondary education also has to happen long before we begin thinking about the transition from high school to post-secondary work. It is, just think about the opportunities and possibilities. I'm thinking about Southwark again. if, in fact, all children in third grade had an experience on a college campus somewhere, because then it provides for them the belief in the realization that they, too, can be a part of those opportunities. These statistics go beyond just high school graduation and really speak to the efforts of educators and supportive services outside of your traditional classroom setting. I'm grateful to have these supports in place here in Philadelphia because they have made a difference for our young people. And I look forward to growing these efforts in the future. So with that, I thank you, and I have the pleasure of introducing Luciana Terrell from the Department of Human Services. At this time, Luciana.
Thank you. Thank you, Chikima, Mayor Nutter, Dr. Height. Commissioner Garrett Harley wanted to be here today, but she is sick. So I'm here in her proxy. So the two areas of the study that I'm going to focus on today are key findings for DHS-involved youth and those who experience a birth prior to or during high school. Over the study period, DHS-involved youth showed dramatic improvements in graduation across all levels of participation with the child welfare system. For example, graduation rates for youth with foster care involvement increased from 28% to 44%. Juvenile justice involvement increased from 16% to 36%. Additionally, graduation for youth with other types of DHS involvement increased from 32% to 47%. However, despite these large gains of DHS-involved youth, their graduation rates continue to lag far behind those of non-DHS-involved youth. Fortunately, female students who experience birth prior to or during high school also saw graduation rates gain from 31% to 42%. Female students did not experience a birth during this time also demonstrated gains in graduation rates, but the rate of those gains were not as great as those students who gave birth. Before I close this afternoon, I just want to again highlight the importance of these findings. As you have surmised today, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to prepare young people for successful futures. These findings are exciting because it means that we're making some progress. But I want to echo my fellow speakers' comments that this is not the end. We, as a city, continue our efforts toward the upward trend in on-time graduation rates by focusing on increasing those rates for youth in foster care, youth in juvenile justice systems, youth who are pregnant and are parenting, and African American and Latino males. We will additionally continue the valued collaboration between the Department of Human Services and the School District of Philadelphia to ensure DHS children attend school every day and take advantage of all opportunities offered by the school through our education support centers. The people I stand up here with today epitomize the true meaning of collaboration. We could not move this work forward without each of them, each of you as well. Thank you for your support this afternoon. At this time, I would like to invite founding co-director of the Policy Lab at CHOP, Dr. David Rubin, to the podium.
Good afternoon. I want to start by thanking all the partners who made this report possible, from a terrific team at Policy Lab to all of our partners at PYN and across the city. They really came together to take a really agnostic look at what the data was actually showing us. And I have to tell you, as someone who didn't have a horse in this race particularly, and I think that's why we're valued at Policy Lab, because we don't step into the politics. We're asked often to come in and try to be a neutral analyst in some ways for what's going on in the city. I didn't know what we were going to find. And I have to say that it was encouraging that in this difficult environment that we've been hearing about in public education in the last few years, particularly following the recession, that we actually did make great progress on graduation outcomes in the city and reduced dropout. I mean, think about how amazing that was in an environment and how stressful it was in the district over the last couple of years. And I want to say that a lot of that success can be attributed to the works of groups like Shakima's, at PYN, Project U-Turn. We have to acknowledge those folks who remained in the district and fought under really difficult circumstances at the schools and up on Broad Street. And partners like DHS who devoted a great deal of attention to this issue. And Luciana just came up here. She runs this education support center down at DHS. When we talk about collective impact at a time of great need, it's partners stepping up around the city to really say, how are we going to help these kids right now? And that's what the Education Support Center does every day. At the same time, I also have to, I have to say we do have a long way to go. And we need to be mindful of the challenges that are even greater today than they were 2 years ago. It's clear from our report that particularly for Black and Latino male youth in particular, and for young mothers, we didn't see the type of progress that we saw for other groups that were analyzed in this study. We also we didn't really greatly shift in terms of making progress on the pipeline to post-secondary education. So we made some great strides around graduation from high school and dropout, but we didn't see that carry across the threshold to graduation for post-secondary education. We also know that many of the resources like the support staff and behavioral health staff that made these improvements possible during the time period of the study are not in the district today. I was joking with Luciana before, but it was real, that many of the folks like the behavioral health support staff that her staff was calling to help re-engage students in the district are no longer in the district today. These were communities that were disrupted by the funding disruptions over the last couple of years. So we have to acknowledge that this progress that we see was accomplished during a time when there was greater funding present to support students in schools. There's no two ways about it. And therefore, I would say this report serves as a challenge to all stakeholders in Philadelphia who are raising the graduation rates, and that in order to continue to raise graduation rates and to reach our most vulnerable children and adolescents, we have to ensure that there's equitable and stable funding and resources for schools to maintain their communities. This report should serve as a challenge for those who argue about the necessary support for public education, that we need to put aside our differences and have a stark debate about the value of these resources. We have to acknowledge that we are even at a greater risk now of stalling, right, and reversing progress if we don't provide schools with the resources necessary to achieve their mission. For those that would demand accountability in terms of that investment, look no further than these data. Thank you. And now I get to call Cynthia Figueroa, my friend, and the Project U-Turn co-director, to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's very exciting to be here, and I just want to, again, recognize and thank the amazing leadership. It was Mayor Nutter who, when was running for office, said that graduation rates was one of the most key important things, and it's been a thread of his administration and a huge legacy for this city. So I just want to say it's an honor to do this work. And we've been talking about heavy stuff, and I'm talking off script, so I'm really freaking out the press people. But I just want to say that it's fun, and we have an amazing collaboration. There's a lot of people in this room who care so much about older youth. And not everybody in this community is like, yay, let's work with older youth. But we have so many people who care about the older youth in this city. And I just want to recognize that all the work that everybody does in this room to make that happen. Also, I want to recognize Councilwoman Janie Blackwell, who came into the room. Thank you for your leadership. I'm here to tell you that the work never stops and that we have an amazing collaboration. And we have a very exciting event that's going to be happening soon, Graduation Nation. Project U-Turn will continue to galvanize its partnership with Philadelphia Graduation Nation's Summit, hosted in partnership, very long title, Americans Promise Alliance, the Graduation Summit, titled Rising to the Challenge, Expanding Citywide Commitment to Narrow the Skills Gap. It's going to be in Philly on Friday, June 12th, so mark your calendars. We have 4 main areas that we hope to achieve, and that's re-engagement, enrichment preparation, post-secondary bridging, and workforce preparation and career exposure. I want to thank everybody again, everybody in this room who commits themselves to older youth and getting it right in the city. And I'm now going to introduce Shakima to take any questions, Shakima and the mayor or Dr. Haidt, who want to answer any questions from the press. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for offering such great remarks. Before we open the floor for questions, it's a pleasure for us to have Councilwoman Blackwell here with us, and wanted to open the floor and offer her the podium if she wanted to make any remarks and address the group.
Politicians always ready to talk.
The floor is
Thank
yours.
you, Mayor, thank you. No, good afternoon. I want to thank Morgan for letting me know this was happening, and we're so pleased. As many of you know, we've been through, certainly let me acknowledge the mayor, the superintendent of schools, the DHS department, Laurie Shore, the mayor's office of education, and all who are here. We've done so many reports in the past about the dropout rate and what we must do. And it's wonderful to have this report to talk about how we move forward, because we cannot be successful as a city and nation if we do not deal with our youth and try to get them back in school and try to make them successful adults. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman, thank you very, very much. And for any members of the press, are there any questions? No, because I want 80, at least. But, you know, as with many things, I mean, I wanted to put forward some ambitious goals. I mean, again, something to strive toward. Notwithstanding the fact that, I mean, I'm not directly in charge of education here in the city. K-12 education, clearly not in charge of colleges and universities. But as mayor, you take on important responsibilities. For all the other things that I've ever said that were important or we wanted to do, education always has to be at the center of it. It is the foundation. It's everything that you can build on is built on a base of educating young people. I may have said in that inaugural address, or certainly have said it a million times since, that, you know, education is our violence reduction strategy. Education is our poverty reduction strategy. Education is our economic development strategy. Everything we do must have education as a part of the centerpiece. When we're educating young people, they're not out doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Companies are looking to this city for talent. People can take care of themselves and their family. And so that's why this funding is so important. It's beyond, you know, a nice thing to do or a good thing to do or the right thing to do. It's a economic imperative that we support education here in the city. And yes, we'll, you know, have to provide more funding, and the only way to pay for things, of course, is through taxes, and people want service and don't want to pay their taxes. I get that part. I understand the conflict there. But, you know, as one much smarter than myself said, you know, but if you think the cost of education, if you think educating children is too expensive, try poverty, try crime, try insufficiency to take care of yourself. Those costs far exceed anything that we're going to do. So, you know, I talked about this typical homeowner as if there's a typical homeowner in Philadelphia, but at least the median. It's a $104 a year increase. It costs us $105 a day to keep someone up at one of our facilities up on State Road. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, a mathematician, or an economist to sort through, you know, what we should be doing. We should be funding education properly, and the district needs the resources, and our kids deserve it. So, you know, like I said, you know, 5 minutes of celebration about, you know, the gains that we've made, but we have a lot more work to do. That's my work, that's our work, and that has to be the work for the future as well. So, long answer to your question, sorry. Any others? Okay. Great job, team. Let's get back to work. Thanks a lot, bye-bye. life in one day.
Man, I know. I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky.